Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of One of One. Today I am joined with an old friend of mine, Eliza. Hi Eliza, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Miranda?
I am very well. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No worries. I'm very
I really
happy to be
appreciate
here.
it. Now it's been a long time since we caught up. I mean, mostly through social media and stuff, but like really detailed, like sitting down, chatting it up. What's been
Absolutely.
going on with you?
So, since graduating uni, I've been struggling to find a job with an arts degree. So what I've been doing is a lot of different jobs, and getting involved with different sort of volunteering work.
Right.
But at the moment, I'm tutoring Aboriginal studies at Notre, and I also recently got involved with an organisation called Proud Roots, which is dedicated to building unity between Māori, Pacific Islander and Aboriginal people in Perth, with the aim of hopefully building a community centre for everyone's culture to be represented, and basically a meeting place for everyone.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
very exciting. It's never been done before.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I like the concept. Now I know that you're juggling a lot of things together. How do you keep yourself balanced?
So I have really struggled with this, as I have a very bad short-term memory. But what I found has really helped me is making a Google Calendar.
Yeah.
And I've synced it up with my phone, my laptop, and my iPad, basically to tell me if I've got something on.
Yeah.
And I will put it in my calendar in advance as much as I can. Otherwise, I genuinely will forget.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't even know what day it is.
Oh my goodness.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
And I've also, I don't remember if I told you this ages ago, I used to be a huge night owl. I still am, but I've had to really fix my sleeping pattern to fit everything together.
Yeah, because
Otherwise,
you
I
need
just
enough
wouldn't.
sleep to be able to juggle everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to be going to bed at 3 a.m. and now I go to bed at 11. So.
Oh, massive. That's a major change. Now, I know that you graduated from the University of Western Australia in 2018.
Yes.
Yeah, and you were majoring in Indigenous Studies.
Yes.
Now, what inspired that? What moved you to take that as a major?
Well, that's a really good question. I, as a non-Indigenous person, grew up with pretty much no exposure and understanding of different Aboriginal cultures around Australia. I had a slight interest, I guess, but it was very much not kind of in my visual landscape, if that makes sense,
Right.
my cultural landscape. So I started at UWA majoring in philosophy and English literature, and decided to take Indigenous Studies as a broadening unit.
Yeah.
And what partly drove my interest in that is I listened to a lot of Indigenous rappers in America. So I had some prior understanding of how colonialism works in other contexts, but not quite the Australian context. And so basically listening to, for example, Immortal Technique, who's an Afro-Peruvian Indigenous hip-hop artist, I decided it would be really cool to, learn about it in an Australian perspective.
Right.
And I absolutely loved the unit so much, the initial unit, that I decided I'm going to drop philosophy and I'm going to major in Indigenous Studies instead.
Yeah.
I found myself a lot more fired up leading the Indigenous Studies tutorials. I enjoyed the readings a lot more. I felt that it was also a lot more applicable to my surroundings.
Right.
And my understanding of time and place. Also living on, stolen land.
Yeah.
It was really important for me to understand the history of the land that I'm on and how to respectfully go about my life on that land.
Yeah. When they make like history in high school, they're not really as detailed about the Aboriginal aspect of it.
Oh, no
It's
way.
usually just, so, you know, we have Aboriginal people in the nation, and that's about it. And I remember that was the same reason why I took it as a broadening unit as well
Yeah.
in uni. It was because I still have that like hunger to know more. Because I was like, I feel like high school didn't tell me as much as I think. Like there's a bigger story behind this. And I took it as a broadening unit, and I just found myself literally like taking more Indigenous studies, even to a point I thought about like doing a double major. But then I just, you know, told myself that I just wanted to learn.
Sure.
I didn't really want it as like something on my resume or whatever, but I just wanted to learn because I think, yeah, a lot of people are ignorant.
Absolutely.
Not just like non-Indigenous people far as like white people, but even Africans as well. There's like a major ignorance around the understanding of Aboriginal people, Aboriginal culture, Aboriginal history. So now as you've completed the degree, why do you think, like what did you take out of it? Why do you think it's important to take those studies for an individual and for society?
That's a really good question. I would say that from the perspective of a non-Indigenous person, so perhaps the benefits and the importance of a non-Indigenous person taking those units, I would say that it accelerates the incorporation of Indigenous voices, cultures and forms of knowledge into the mainstream, which is somewhat happening at the moment, but you know, historically, in the sense of Australia's history, has never really been there. For a lot of students at university, it is their first time getting a snippet or, you know, a sense of the nation's history, especially around the Perth region. I think at school, when we are taught about Aboriginal history, it's from a very negative perspective. Like it focuses on the atrocities of the past, which is obviously super important, but it's not also showing the brilliance of Aboriginal cultures as well, which when you've only got one side of the narrative, it creates a singular kind of caricature of what it means to be an Aboriginal person. And I think that, you know, with our generation finally having this experience for the first time, as opposed to our, you know, past generations, our parents and our grandparents, we are at a much more better understanding of race relations in Australia than I think we've ever been before. And more people are taking the classes. Before, like 10 years ago, people took the classes, but not as many. Nowadays, it's like, you've got to do that unit, you know, you'll love that unit. And people come out of those units a completely different person. For a lot of people, it's their first time feeling that cognitive gap and beginning their journey of empathy, insight and respect in regards to not only Australia's trajectory of colonisation, but also, importantly, understanding and learning about the complexities and brilliance of Aboriginal cultures.
I think it's really good because I would say that you don't have to be pro-Indigenous people to take a unit like that, because there were people that still were ignorant. So I think even if you're ignorant, take it, because that's how the ignorance kind of gets cleared. Because everything is now explained in detail. Because I remember there was a unit we did, and there was someone who was quite ignorant. And I remember there was a day they made an ignorant comment of what they thought because of what they knew, because of what they had been taught in high school, right? But then in that moment, our tutor is the one that ended up educating them, but they didn't do it in an aggressive way. It was in an understanding way of, you know what, everyone who does this unit does not understand everything. Other people have questions, other people have doubts about the history, but after like a couple of weeks, now the person's perspective changed. And I think that's the importance of welcoming all different kinds of people, the ignorant and the ones who know, because the whole point is just to educate people, because I'm sure they were surrounded by more ignorant people. So now with them being educated, they're going to go to other people and be like, wait, you're wrong, because now they had been corrected in what they were doing. Now the next thing is that like you're a very active activist, right? Especially when it comes to social issues, even race-related issues. I see your post on Facebook. So I know this girl is like devoted. She's super devoted. Now, some people may ask you, since you're not a person of color, why does it bother you? Like, why even bother, you know, standing up or doing whatever? And people may think, you know, you have privileges, you don't deal with this stuff. Why focus? Why put your voice out there for people of color, or even just other cultures or people from different backgrounds?
For sure. Excellent question again.
Yeah.
I am definitely privileged. I don't necessarily believe that race-related issues affect me personally, but they affect the people I love.
Yeah.
And I also want everyone to have the same opportunities that I have.
Right.
I have had some sort of insight, I guess, on a personal first-hand, second-hand level, in that my great-grandmother was Indian, and that was a family secret because she was very ashamed of being Indian.
Yeah.
And I think that may have been because of the White Australia policy, and also social alienation and pressures.
Yeah.
But contemporarily, I think, you know, at the end of the day, we're all human, and as humans, we need to look out for each other and protect each other.
Yeah.
I think if you turn a blind eye to that sort of thing, it's quite frankly like lazy. But I've also noticed as well through my undertaking of Indigenous studies that my mind had been colonised, you know, since birth, and obviously many Australians, their minds are colonised. Many white, even, you know, people of colour, their minds have been colonised, but it tends to manifest in a different sort of way. And for me, it was important to decolonise my mind to work better in understanding the world around me, and in understanding, you know, why I'm here, you know, in this particular spot, and why other people are in other spots. I think to turn a blind eye to issues that don't affect you is indicative of some lack of empathy. And I think empathy really is a crucial part of all of this. But at the end of the day, I want everyone to have the same opportunities in healthcare, education, you know, life expectancy, all those, you know, crucial factors. And I also understand the influence that I have as a middle-class white woman, and I would like to, you know, use that in whatever way possible that I can to be a vessel for Aboriginal voices and perspectives, while also foregrounding their points of view. Yeah. As opposed to, you know, me making it, oh, it's, you know, it's all about me. No, it's not. It's about putting other people's voices first who aren't heard as much.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you just said you had to decolonize your mind. And I think that's the powerful aspect of, like, it's a choice.
Absolutely.
You know, I think sometimes ignorance is a choice. Some people act like, well, I can't help the way I think. The fact that you're saying that you acknowledged and saw that your mind was colonized, but you went ahead and tried to seek a way to have that changed, I think that makes, like, that makes you stand out, and that makes you very different, because I think a lot of people find comfort in just being ignorant, like, oh, that's just, you know, that's just the way life is, and that's the way I am. And I think it's just an excuse to just not wanting to be educated.
For sure.
Or having your perspective changed. Now, do you regard yourself a feminist?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah? I really love the fact that you possess this voice, this strong voice when it comes to issues affecting women. Is there a story behind it?
Well, my mum would say that there is no story behind it. I would also say there isn't much of a story behind it, I guess. I think naturally I'm an extremely outspoken person, and it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It works with me, but it also definitely does not work with me sometimes. I guess I have always had a pretty good understanding of fairness and equality, perhaps not in a detailed sense since I was a child, but I was also a really nerdy kid, and I would go to bed reading like these they were like history encyclopedias, and I used to always read about the suffragette movement and very, you know, important women, and women who, you know, changed the course of history. And I think that I honestly think it's sort of innate, but I've just worked with it, and I've allowed myself to, you know, grow more in that sense, because, you know, even in starting my, you know, sense of feminism with the suffragette movement, which was about the right to vote, that's still ignorant of the fact that black women, couldn't vote at the same time.
Right.
So it's not like a be all and end all, journey. You're always still learning more about how sexism affects women across the world in completely different ways.
Yeah. And what do you hope, so with you being outspoken as a young woman, what do you hope that does for young women, like probably, seeing you and everything like that, when it comes to just having a voice? Because I think some young women, like what you're saying, there are differences as well, because sometimes when it comes to women, there's also a division under women. There's black women, Asian women, white women, this and that. So what do you hope to convey to women when it comes to them realizing that they have a voice and to use it?
I want women to know that they do not exist as an accessory or prop or object in relation to men. They don't exist as some sort of extension of man.
Yeah.
And that it's okay to be controversial. It's okay to, be dominant. It's okay to say what you feel and what you think. It's okay to not be ladylike. In fact, I would encourage all of those things because you've got to live your truth.
Right.
And I feel that because women have been conditioned for, centuries, or arguably thousands of years, to be submissive and meek in relation to, traditional aspects of masculinity.
Yeah.
Women kind of perhaps feel that they can't push those boundaries, but it's your life, you've got to be an individual. You can't exist as some, prototype of femininity.
Yeah.
You've got to be your own person, and if you possess some traditionally feminine traits, you possess some, traditionally feminine traits.
Yeah.
But humans are so much more complex than that.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard finding your voice as a woman because you do get a lot of criticism for it, and you definitely do get shut down. You are alienated. You are deemed difficult. You are deemed, a bitchy kind of woman.
Yeah.
But
so many negative connotations.
Yeah, like be your own person. The world will eventually catch up. You've got to be a trendsetter, if that makes sense.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let me just check something quickly.
Sure thing.
This one is still going. Okay, cool. And this one is still going. Cool. This one. Okay. You're doing good.
Really?
And natural.
Oh, really? I'm not saying everything that I want to say. But it's good. It's all good.
That's all good. Now, I'm interested to know, because, not only are you an activist as far as, social issues and everything, but even when it comes to, like, environmental issues, like things about nature and everything. And I think, like, at this age, as a young woman, you have learned a lot of things in different aspects of life, whether it's social issues, race-related, gender, whatever. What advice, like with you looking back, from like your age now and to like the younger version of you, because I know when we're young kids, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as how it's painted in front of us.
Absolutely.
So when you look back to like a much younger you with everything that you've learned now, what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself? And this is, for younger girls now, who think that they understand the world, who think that, there's peace everywhere, Oh. No, I don't like that. Why is it doing that?
It like stops and then it does it.
Yeah, why is it doing that? I think that's better now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. You want to try me? You really want to try me? I'll just restart the question because I think that sound got worse as I was going with the question. I was just saying that I'm interested to know, because at this point, I believe you've learned a lot through life experiences and through, just being exposed to so many different issues and you being an activist in so many areas. And what I know is that sometimes when we're younger, we don't see the issues that are in the world as they are.
For sure.
Maybe sometimes because our parents are able to hide everything from us in such a good way that we don't know that there's war, we don't know that there's racism, we don't know any of these things. Because I've met people that when the whole police brutality thing was happening in
Yes.
America, people who were shocked and they were like, no, there's peace in America. Black people are happy in America. But, you know, when you are exposed to so many different outlets of, you know, news and whatever, you get to know, like, the world really is not as peaceful as we think it is. Because I think that when I was telling you that, you know, there are also some ignorant Africans as well, I've spoken to people who have said that, you know, Aboriginal people are happy in Australia.
Yeah.
They're happy with everything, you know? And it's like, well, have you met one? Have you spoken to someone? And it's like, no. But, you know, we don't see anything wrong happening. We don't see this and that. And it's like, it depends on where your vision is fixated on.
Absolutely.
That's why you can't see it. So for you, as a young woman now, looking back to a much younger version of yourself and your understanding of the world then and your understanding of the world now, what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself? Because I think there are some young girls who, you know, think that the world is so sweet and whatever, and, you know, they don't quite understand that there's still a need for that push and that resilience, because the world is maxed to be, you know, this peaceful, free area, maybe for someone, but for someone else it's not the same.
Absolutely. I think growing up, I was very headstrong and fixed on my views. So, like, if I perceived the world to be some way, then that was the truth.
Right.
You know, I was always right, especially as a teenager.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
And I thought, you know, I can see it. I see it for how it is. But these days, you know, it's a different story. I think I'm a bit more humble about my perceptions of reality and you know, how I see the world around me and how it benefits me and disenfranchises other people. One thing I would say to myself is to definitely not take things at face value. And by that I mean, as a child, you know, I grew up thinking that, going back to, you know, the whole idea of me doing Indigenous studies again, this relates to this quite a bit. You know, I thought that European imperialism was a good thing. I thought, oh, you know, it's all about, you know, going to new lands and building things. Look, this is where my ancestors come from. This is what they've done. It's all, you know, it's amazing. Violent conquest didn't happen. You know, other parts of the world are impoverished because that's just the way it is. When, you know, now I know the reason why European countries are so, you know, wealthy is because they've gone out all over the world and have basically taken whatever resources they can and have used other people as slaves to do that. And so going back to that, I would say that I would need to see things from another person's point of view, perhaps, you know, obviously demographically, so say like a brown or black person around the world, to see things from, you know, their families' point of view historically, and, you know, how pain is passed down. But for me, like, I benefit from all of these things. So I hadn't really seen that before. So I guess in summary, I would tell myself to think more critically about how things become the way that they are, to not take things at face value, to not be so cocky with my points of view. But I would also tell myself to be careful with how I communicate in making those assertions, because I don't think I really thought much before I spoke. And I don't think I considered other people's feelings as much as I do now. Especially in terms, like, this is going back to empathy as well, you know, practicing empathy is so important. And that empathy was lacking for me. So it was through being exposed to different cultures, you know, learning more about the history, you know, internationally, not just in terms of Australia, that I was able to take that blind spot away and to really see things for the, you know, the complex way that they exist.